The massive Valderi ships appeared without warning. One moment, Earth's skies were clear and blue. The next, they were filled with dark, metallic shapes that blocked out the sun. In New York, Tokyo, London, and every major city across the planet, millions of people stopped and looked up at the terrifying sight. The Valderi ships were beautiful in a cold, dangerous way. Their hulls gleamed like polished obsidian, decorated with streaks of purple energy that pulsed like alien heartbeats. The smallest of their ships was larger than Earth's biggest aircraft carrier. The largest was the size of a small city. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the United Nations Emergency Command Center, watching the main screen with narrowed eyes. Around her, military leaders from every nation sat in tense silence. They all knew Earth's combined forces wouldn't last an hour against such power. The transmission came exactly 1 hour after the ships appeared. The hologram that materialized in the center of the UN chamber showed a tall, elegant alien. Its silver skin seemed to shimmer, and its 4 eyes glowed with a purple light that matched its ships. "I am Imperial Executor Vaxthal of the Valderi Empire," the alien announced in perfect English. "We rule 70% of this galaxy. Your species has 2 choices: submit to our rule within 30 days, or face complete extinction." The executor's upper lips curled in what might have been a smile. "Choose wisely." The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, some demanding immediate surrender, others calling for resistance. Admiral Chen remained silent, her mind racing. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, and countless wars. Would they really just kneel before the first aliens who showed up with big ships? In the days that followed, something strange happened. While politicians debated surrender terms in public, historians began working around the clock. They weren't studying alien contact or space warfare. Instead, they were diving deep into Earth's military history, particularly focusing on ancient scorched earth tactics. Dr. James Martinez, lead historian at Oxford University, found himself surprised by urgent government requests. They wanted everything about how ancient armies had denied resources to invaders. The Russians burning Moscow to stop Napoleon. The Chinese flooding their own lands to slow down enemies. Farmers destroying their crops rather than letting them fall into enemy hands. The Valderi noticed this unusual research but didn't understand its significance. Their own species had evolved as empire builders, always preserving and using what they conquered. The concept of destroying your own resources was 20 days had passed since the Valderi ultimatum. On the surface, Earth's governments appeared to be preparing for surrender. Diplomats held public meetings about peaceful transition of power, while news channels discussed the benefits of joining the mighty Valderi Empire. But deep underground, in bunkers and secret facilities across the planet, humanity was preparing for something very different. Dr. Sarah Wong hadn't slept properly in days. Her laboratory, hidden beneath the Australian outback, was filled with holographic displays showing the terraforming systems of Earth's colony worlds. Around her, dozens of engineers worked frantically at their stations. "The modifications to Mars colony's terraforming core are complete," one of her assistants reported. "We can trigger full meltdown whenever needed." Sarah nodded grimly. They were turning life-giving technology into a weapon of mass destruction. The thought made her sick, but the alternative was worse. In another secret facility, this one buried deep in the Ural Mountains, General Viktor Petrov watched as soldiers trained with strange new weapons. These weren't normal guns or bombs. They were learning to control swarms of tiny drones, each one programmed to cause maximum damage to Valderi technology. "Remember," Victor told his troops, "we don't fight like they expect. We don't defend territory. We make the territory itself into a weapon." Above Earth's atmosphere, the Valderi observed all this activity with mild amusement. Their massive ships detected the movement of people and resources, the construction of underground facilities, the strange energy signatures from the colonies. "The humans are panicking," High Commander Zextor reported to the Imperial Executor. They scurry about like trapped insects, preparing useless defenses, just like every other species before them. But junior analyst Kexley wasn't so sure. In her small office aboard the command ship, she studied the data with growing concern. The patterns didn't match previous conquered species. Other races had built up their militaries, tried to match Valderi technology. Humans were doing something different. They're focusing too much on their own worlds, she muttered to herself. Why are they studying their colonies' geological structures? Why modify terraforming equipment when they know they can't fight us? Her questions went unheard. The Valderi commanders were too busy planning how they would divide Earth's resources after the humans surrendered. Meanwhile, in a hidden command center beneath Geneva, Admiral Chen met with the leaders of Earth's combined military forces. The room was filled with holograms showing their colony worlds: Mars, Venus, Europa, and dozens of others across nearby star systems. All colonies report ready, her aide announced. Civilian evacuation is 90% complete. Terraforming cores have been modified on all 17 major worlds. Chen looked at the faces around her. They all knew what their plan meant. Centuries of colonization work would be destroyed. Trillions of dollars in infrastructure would be lost. But their expressions showed grim determination. Send the final code phrase to all colonies, Chen ordered. Operation Scorched Earth is now active. In orbit, Kexley filed one final report: human behavior patterns highly abnormal. Suggest immediate intervention. Once again, her superiors ignored the warning. After all, what could these primitives possibly do that the mighty Valderi Empire couldn't handle? As the surrender deadline approached, humanity held its breath. The Valderi waited for submission. Instead, they were about to learn why humans were the most dangerous species they had ever encountered. Day 29 arrived. The Valderi Empire's massive fleet held position around Earth, waiting for humanity's surrender. On their command ship, Imperial Executor Vaxthal was preparing his victory speech. The first warning came from Junior Analyst Kexley's station. Sir, massive energy spikes detected from all human colonies. Before anyone could react, the emergency alerts started flooding in. On Mars, the modified terraforming core activated. The red planet's surface began to crack and split. Massive volcanoes that had been dormant for millions of years roared to life, spewing superheated plasma into the atmosphere. Impossible, High Commander Zextor whispered, watching the feeds. They're destroying their own colony. But Mars was just the beginning. On Venus, human engineers had reversed the atmospheric processors. Instead of making the planet more habitable, they were now making it even more hostile. Acid storms began raging across the surface, melting everything they touched. The Europa colony, built beneath the moon's icy surface, triggered their fusion reactors to melt the entire ice shell. Billions of credits worth of mining equipment and research facilities disappeared into the newly created ocean. Stop them, Vaxthal screamed. Send ships to every colony. Shut down those terraforming cores. Valderi warships rushed to respond, but they had never seen anything like this. The modified terraforming technology wasn't just destroying the colonies, it was changing the planets themselves. Every attempt to shut down the process failed. In her small office, Kexley watched the destruction with a mixture of horror and fascination. They're not just destroying the colonies, she realized. They're making the planets completely unusable. She was right. Each colony had been carefully chosen for its valuable resources. Mars's rare earth elements, Venus's precious metals, Europa's unique minerals, all were vital to the Empire's economy. Now these resources weren't just being destroyed. They were being made completely inaccessible. On Earth, Admiral Chen watched the feeds from her underground command center. The faces around her were grim but determined. Centuries of human expansion into space were being undone in hours, but nobody flinched. Colony status report, her aide announced. Mars. Surface temperature rising to 2,000 degrees. All facilities destroyed. Venus. Acid storms at maximum intensity. Colony infrastructure dissolved. Europa. Ice shell 60% melted. Mining operations completely submerged. Titan. Methane seas ignited. Colony burning. The reports kept coming. Every human colony, every outpost, every mining station, all were being systematically destroyed. Resources that the Valderi had planned to seize were being rendered worthless. On the Valderi command ship, Vaxthal watched in disbelief as his easy conquest turned into a nightmare. These were supposed to be primitive humans. How dare they destroy such valuable worlds rather than submit to the Empire's rule? "Sir," a junior officer reported nervously, "we're detecting similar energy signatures from Earth. They've modified their planetary defense systems." Vaxthal felt real fear for the first time in his long life. The humans weren't just destroying their colonies. They had turned their own homeworld into a weapon, ready to self-destruct rather than surrender. In her command center, Admiral Chen sent a simple message to the Valderi fleet. "We would rather reduce our worlds to ash than kneel before tyrants." Your move. The mighty Valderi Empire was learning a harsh lesson. Threatening humans was easy. Dealing with their response was something else entirely. For 3 days after humanity destroyed their colonies, silence filled the space around Earth. The Valderi fleet hung motionless, their dark ships reflecting the light of the sun they had once thought to claim. Inside the Imperial flagship, chaos reigned. The Empire's highest commanders argued furiously while watching recordings of the colony's destruction over and over. "We must destroy them immediately," High Commander Zextor shouted, his silver skin flushed dark with rage. "These primitives dare to defy us." But Imperial Executor Vaxthal wasn't so sure anymore. He watched the hologram showing Mars, once a promising mining colony, now a hell of molten rock and plasma storms. "If we attack," he said quietly, "what will they do to Earth itself?" Junior analyst Kexley had been promoted after her warnings proved correct. Now she stood before the Imperial Council, presenting her findings. "In 10,000 years of conquest," she explained, "we have never encountered a species like this. They would rather destroy everything than submit." The council chamber erupted in angry shouts. Impossible. Illogical. No species would choose destruction over survival. But the evidence was clear. 17 colonies, worth trillions in resources, had been reduced to worthless ruins. The humans had spent centuries building these outposts, yet they destroyed them without hesitation. On Earth, Admiral Chen received reports from underground bunkers worldwide. The planet's population had been quietly moved to hardened shelters over the past month. Every major city was rigged with devices similar to those that had destroyed the colonies. "Message from the Valderi fleet," her aide announced. "They're demanding an explanation for our insane actions." Chen smiled grimly. "Send them the prepared response. All channels, all languages." Across every Valderi ship, screens came to life. The message was simple, played over scenes from human history. "For thousands of years, we humans have fought each other. We've burned our own cities rather than let them fall to enemies. We've destroyed our own crops to deny them to invaders. We've died by the millions protecting our freedom." The images showed Moscow burning before Napoleon's army, scorched earth tactics from countless wars, and finally, the recently destroyed colonies. "Now you come from the stars, demanding we kneel. You expect us to hand over our worlds, our resources, our freedom. You think we will submit like all the others." The message paused, showing the current images of Mars, Venus, and other ruined colonies. "We would rather burn everything than live as slaves. Every human world is rigged to self-destruct. Every city on Earth can be reduced to ash at a moment's notice. This is not a bluff. We've already proven what we're willing to do." In the council chamber, the Valderi leaders watched in stunned silence as the message concluded. "You have 2 choices. Leave our space and never return, or watch as we turn Earth itself into a radioactive fireball. Unlike you, We'd rather die free than live as slaves. You have 24 hours to decide. Kexley looked at her stunned superiors. They're not lying, she said quietly. Every psychological analysis confirms it. They'll do it. They'll destroy everything. For the first time in their history, the mighty Valderi Empire faced a choice they never expected: retreat or gain nothing but radioactive ruins. The empire that had never known defeat was about to learn that some prices were too high, even for them. The Valderi Empire chose war. Their pride couldn't accept retreat, even after humanity's devastating display of defiance. As their ships descended toward Earth's major cities, they expected to find cowering humans begging for mercy. Instead, they found empty streets. City scan complete, reported a Valderi commander over New York. No significant human presence detected. Population gone. Similar reports came in from every target city. London, Tokyo, Beijing, Moscow, all stood silent and empty. The mighty Valderi army had arrived to conquer ghosts. Then the attacks began. In Shanghai, a Valderi patrol disappeared into what seemed to be an ordinary office building. When reinforcements arrived, they found only broken machinery. The entire structure had been a trap, filled with tiny robots that stripped away armor and weapons before vanishing into hidden tunnels. These humans, High Commander Xector raged. They refused to fight properly. Where is their army? Where are their defense forces? The answer came in the form of endless, maddening strikes. Swarms of microdrones would emerge from sewers and ventilation shafts, destroying vital equipment before disappearing. Supply ships would find their cargo mysteriously transformed into useless junk by hidden nanites. In her new position as chief analyst, Kexley struggled to make sense of the human tactics. They're not trying to win battles, she realized. They're making us waste resources just existing here. She was right. The Valderi found themselves fighting shadows. Every building could be a trap. Every piece of infrastructure might be rigged to explode. The cost of maintaining their invasion force grew higher each day. Deep underground, in bunkers scattered across the planet, humanity watched and waited. Admiral Chen studied the holographic display showing Valderi ship movements. Their mighty fleet was spreading thinner each day, trying to control empty cities while protecting their supply lines. "Launch Operation Mosquito," she ordered. Across Earth, small teams emerged from hidden bases. They struck at Valderi supply ships, communication relays, and fuel deposits. Before the aliens could respond, the humans would vanish back into their underground network. Like the resistance fighters of old, General Petrov told his troops before one raid, "We don't need to defeat their army. We just need to make victory cost more than they're willing to pay." The Valderi became increasingly frustrated. Their mighty warships, designed for grand space battles, were useless against an enemy that refused to face them directly. Every time they thought they had found a human stronghold, they found only more traps and automated defenses. The humans are cowards. Xector declared during a war council. They hide like vermin. No, Kexley corrected quietly. They're being intelligent. Why should they fight our way when their way is working so well? The casualty reports proved her point. After a month of conquering Earth, the Valderi had lost thousands of troops and hundreds of ships. In return, they controlled nothing but empty cities that could be reduced to ash at any moment. In her command bunker, Admiral Chen received the latest statistics. The Valderi fleet was now operating at 60% capacity. Their supply lines were stretched to breaking point, and they still hadn't found a single major human population center. "Send the next message," she ordered. "Let's remind them what happens to invaders who overstay their welcome." The real war was just beginning, and humanity's most devastating weapons hadn't even been revealed yet. 2 months into the war, the Valderi Empire received a message they couldn't understand. It was just 3 words: the planet's rise. They discovered its meaning an hour later. Multiple massive objects detected. The sensor officer's voice shook with disbelief. There They're pieces of Mars. The modified terraforming devices hadn't just destroyed the human colonies. They had turned entire planets into weapons. Mars had broken apart, its fragments now accelerating toward key Imperial systems. In her command center, Dr. Sarah Wong watched her life's work turn into the greatest weapon in human history. Trajectory calculations complete, she reported to Admiral Chen. The first fragments will reach Valdari Prime in 6 days. The Valdari fleet scrambled to respond. But how do you stop pieces of a planet, each one the size of a small moon, moving at incredible speeds? Their weapons were designed to destroy ships, not celestial bodies. Impossible, High Commander Zextor screamed, watching the sensor readings. They've weaponized their own worlds. These humans are insane. But Mars was just the beginning. Venus had also broken apart, its superheated, acid-covered fragments joining the assault. Europa's melted ice had been shaped into massive projectiles, frozen again and launched at Imperial shipyards. Chief Analyst Kexley stared at her displays in horror. They didn't just destroy their colonies, she whispered. They turned them into ammunition. Every world we thought they'd ruined. They were preparing this all along. The Empire's mighty fleet split apart, desperately trying to intercept the planet fragments before they could reach populated systems. But there were too many targets, moving too fast. The first impact hit a Valdari mining colony. A piece of Mars, still glowing with internal heat, struck the planet like an angry god's hammer. The entire colony disappeared in a flash of light visible from 3 systems away. In the underground bunkers of Earth, humanity watched the destruction they had unleashed. Many wept, knowing they had turned humanity's greatest achievements, their first colonies among the stars, into weapons of mass destruction. We gave them a choice, Admiral Chen reminded her staff. They chose this. The Valdari leadership panicked. Their carefully organized empire was falling apart. Half their fleet was trying to stop the planet fragments, while the other half was still tied down on Earth, fighting an enemy they couldn't find. We must withdraw, Kexley urged the Imperial Council. The humans aren't just willing to destroy their own worlds. They're willing to use the destroyed pieces as weapons. We never imagined. Another impact cut off her words. A fragment of Venus, carrying its acid storms with it, had struck one of the Empire's largest shipyards. Nothing survived. Dr. Wong's voice was tired as she reported the next wave of launches. Europa's fragments are now on course. Titan's pieces launch in 12 hours. We've turned our dreams of space colonization into a nightmare for our enemies. The Valdari Empire had ruled space for 10,000 years. They had never imagined that a primitive species would turn entire planets into artillery shells. They had never thought anyone would sacrifice their own colony so completely. But humans had proven they would do anything, absolutely anything, to remain free. And they weren't finished yet. The Valdari Empire was bleeding. Not just soldiers and ships, but money and resources. After 3 months of war against humanity, their mighty economy began to crack. On the Imperial capital world, Valdari Prime, the first riots in 10,000 years broke out. The planet's famous crystal markets, where rare minerals from conquered worlds were traded, had shut down. Without Earth's colonies to plunder, prices for basic materials had skyrocketed. Financial report, High Council, a nervous economist announced. 40% of our mining operations are shut down. Our ships can't protect trade routes while also defending against the human planet weapons. In her new position on the council, Kexley watched her civilization crumbling. The mighty Valdari fleet, once perfectly organized, was now scattered. Half their ships chased planet fragments through space. The other half remained trapped around Earth, fighting shadows and spending resources. Then came the rebellions. The Zentari, a species conquered centuries ago, struck first. They destroyed their Valdari overlords and declared independence. The Empire tried to respond, but their fleet was too stretched thin. We have a message from the Zentari rebels. A communication officer reported to the council. They say the humans taught them that even the mighty can fall. More rebellions followed. The Crixians, the Nuvan, the Aldari, species that had submitted to the Empire for generations, suddenly found their courage. They looked at humanity, a primitive species that chose to destroy their own worlds rather than kneel, and felt shame at their own submission. On Earth, Admiral Chen received the reports with grim satisfaction. "How many species have declared independence?" she asked during a strategy meeting. 7 major systems in the last week alone, her aide reported. The Empire can't maintain control while fighting us. Their economy is collapsing. Their military is stretched beyond breaking point. Deep in an underground bunker, Dr. Wong monitored the planet fragments still traveling through space. "Titan's pieces will reach their targets in 3 days, she announced. The Empire has stopped trying to intercept them. They don't have enough ships left. The Valdari Council Chamber, once a place of quiet confidence, had become a scene of chaos. Reports of new disasters arrived every hour. 3 more systems declaring independence. The peace conference was held in orbit around Earth. The Valdari delegation's ships looked different now. Their once gleaming hulls were scared and dulled, like their empire's pride. Inside the conference room, Admiral Chen faced Imperial Executor Vaxthal across a simple table. Both leaders looked tired. Victory and defeat had extracted their price from everyone. "The mighty Valdari Empire," Chen said quietly, "requests peace talks with the primitive humans." Vaxthal's silver skin had lost its shine. We were wrong about your species. Terribly wrong. Name your terms." But humanity didn't want what the Valdari expected. They didn't demand territory or resources. They didn't ask to rule the Empire's remains. First, Chen announced, "Every species in your empire gets a choice. Real freedom to decide their own path. No more forced submission." Kexley, now the Empire's chief negotiator, nodded in understanding. "You don't want to replace us as rulers. You want to end the very idea of imperial rule." Second, Chen continued, "The Valdari will help rebuild. Not as conquerors, but as equals. Your technology will help restore the worlds we had to destroy." The Valdari delegation was shocked. They had expected revenge, not reconstruction. In the bunkers below Earth's surface, humanity began emerging after months of hiding. They looked up at skies no longer darkened by Valdari ships. Their victory had cost them every colony, but Earth remained free. Dr. Wong stood in her laboratory, looking at images of the destroyed colonies. Mars, Venus, Europa, all sacrificed to win freedom. "We can rebuild them," she said to her team. "Not as fortresses or weapons this time, as homes." The news spread across the galaxy. Species that had lived under Valdari rule for generations celebrated their new freedom. Many sent representatives to Earth, eager to meet the humans who had shown that even the mightiest empire could fall. "You've changed everything," a Zentari ambassador told Admiral Chen. "For thousands of years, we thought resistance was pointless. You proved that freedom is worth any price." In the following months, a new galactic society began to form. Not an empire ruled by the strong, but a community of equals. The Valdari learned to be partners instead of rulers. Their technology, once used for conquest, now helped restore the worlds humanity had sacrificed. General Petrov watched as the first reconstruction ships headed to Mars. "Strange," he said to Chen. "We won by destroying our achievements, and our reward is a chance to rebuild them better." The Valdari Empire officially dissolved 6 months after the peace talks. Vaxthal's last act as imperial executor was to apologize to every species his people had enslaved. 1 year after the invasion, Admiral Chen stood in the new Galactic Council Chamber, built in orbit around Earth. Representatives from 50 formerly enslaved species sat together, planning their shared future. "Was it worth it?" Kexley asked her during a break. "Destroying your colonies to win freedom." Chen looked out at Earth below. Then at the stars beyond. Freedom often has a high price, she answered, but humanity would pay it again if we had to. And now, thanks to that sacrifice, no one else will have to. The stars beckoned once more, not as territories to conquer or defend, but as places to explore together. Humanity had burned their first attempts at colonization to ash, but from those ashes, something better would grow. A future without empires, a galaxy of the free.